trap from the very beginning. Some clanks happened beyond the door, and it shortly opens, one of the guards throwing another soldier into the holding cell, who we find out is named Sergeant Kim. The other soldier is visibly angry at seeing another soldier treated this way, and gets up to spout insults at their captor. The guard saying something in a language that we can't understand, and promptly bashes the soldier's head with an assault rifle. We get a peek at this captor, showing us that he is of African descent, meaning this whole ordeal might be happening in one of the many war-torn countries in that continent. Kim asks the other soldier if he's okay, calling him lieutenant. The lieutenant says he's fine, and asks about the other troops, who Kim says that they were dragged off someplace else. More clanks happened outside the door, and again, it shortly opens after. One of the guards looking down at them, that's when he falls to the ground, knocked out by a person who was behind him, who asks if Lieutenant Kang Ham-chan is here. The lieutenant is surprised to hear Korean coming from this stranger's mouth, and asks who he is. The stranger says that he is here to rescue them, and they all begin following him. We see the results of this stranger's arrival, with multiple guards knocked out cold, Kang expressing his surprise. Kang then asks the stranger about his division, and how many people he is with. The stranger says that he cannot disclose this information, and that he is alone. Kang is again surprised by this, thinking that how could a single person do this? Stealthily, too. A door suddenly opens and a guard comes out, who is reaching for his gun after he saw them. Kang is prepared to open fire, but before he can do anything, the stranger sprints at the guards and incapacitates the first one with 2 swift blows, and taking the other one out with a knife throw. The stranger talks with the soldiers, saying that they will increase their pace and that he will take care of the enemies. Kang agrees, annoyed at the fact that he's basically treating them like baggage. The stranger moves swiftly and quickly defeats any guards that try to stop him. Kang noticed that there will be multiple enemies beyond the next corner, and that the stranger will need help with this one. The stranger, however, keeps moving and dashes in front of the guards, silently taking all of them out. Kang is shocked at his disregard for life, saying that he is a true monster, but he is too reckless, and it's clear that he's not from the military. They make it outside, and the stranger tells them to wait here for 1 minute. Kang is puzzled by this, but notice the other soldiers behind them, who are clearly out of breath, showing the stranger's ability to observe. Kang notices the stranger's black pupils, and his clumsy but overall good Korean. Kang asks if he is Korean, but the stranger doesn't respond, and waits a bit until saying that time is up, and they begin moving again. Kang wondering if he is correct. After a while they make it to a clearing, where the other soldiers who were captured are waiting for them. Both parties happy that they reunited. Kang asks what happened to them, and they say that the stranger also saved them, and told them to wait here. The stranger proclaims that this is where they part ways, and that if they go southwest there will be people waiting for them. Kang expresses his gratitude, but the stranger says there's no need for thanks, and that he simply carried out a request. Kang confirms his suspicion of him being a mercenary, and offers him a handshake, saying that even if it was a request, he would still like to give his thanks. The stranger looks at Kang's hand, and that's when an explosion comes out of the bushes, surprising them both. The stranger screams for everyone to get down, an explosion occurring right as he finished his sentence. Kang gets discombobulated by the explosion, but he manages to survive, saying that the explosion was from mortar rounds. He looks for his people and finds that they are safe, the explosion having missed them. Suddenly gunshots can be heard, and we see the stranger retaliating at the attackers. Kang is extremely surprised by his appearance, and rightly so, because the stranger looks just like a teenager, showing us that he is quite young. It cuts to 6 months later, and we see the outside of a school. Inside, a teacher is presenting a new student to a class, who is the stranger that helped the soldiers escape. While presenting himself, we finally get his name, Yu Ijin. Inside the school, a girl thinks about her brother. Her thinking gets cut short after a girl comes into class screaming about a new student, who is apparently very good-looking. The girl knows that they are talking about her brother, the brother she never expected to be alive due to a plane crash that occurred while he was inside. Inside an airport, she looks longingly at Ijin, who we find out is her brother. Next to him is an old man, who is gently touching his face while crying, expressing his surprise and happiness at him returning alive. The girl questions if that is really her brother. That's when Ijin looks at her and gently smiles at her, saying that she must be Dayun. Her thinking is interrupted by a girl, who is annoyed at Dayun for ignoring her for so long. The girl demands Dayun's gym clothes later during PE, and asks if he brought them. Dayun says that she did, but if she gives to the girl, what will she wear? The girl scoffs at Dayun and calls her insane for talking back to them, slapping her across the head. The girl is clearly bullying Dayun and asks if she wants to get beaten up in front of everyone to the point of crying again, showing us that this bullying has gone on for a while. We cut back to the class that Ijin is attending, where the teacher is still presenting him to the class, saying that he was living abroad for personal reasons, and that they should help him adjust to his new life. The girls are all quite infatuated with him. The teacher tells him to take a seat in an empty seat, and he obliges. While walking to his seat, a guy with red hair and an orange tracksuit glares at him, wondering why people are fawning over him, and that he looks pretty weak. Big words coming from someone that looks like he's trying to cosplay a Oompa Loompa. The guy tries to humiliate Ijin by trying to trip him, but Ijin notices instantly and stops. The guy is surprised by this, thinking that he timed it perfectly. Ijin glares at him, which annoys him. That's when Ijin thinks about what he discussed with Kong, the lieutenant. Kong told him to avoid fighting while living in Korea, and Ijin obliges, saying that he won't engage in battle if he doesn't have enough data about the place, and that he has no intention of moving too hastily and getting killed. Ijin says that he is a professional who lived on the battlefield for 10 years, quite a lot considering his age. Kang stops him from his rant, saying that's not why he's telling him this, and more so for his opponent, expressing his worry for anyone he faces. The teacher noticed that Ijin is standing still, and asks why he stopped moving. Ijin apologies, and continues walking to the seat. The guy says that Ijin is scared out loud, but Ijin ignores him. The teacher tells the student next to Ijin to take care of him, and we find that the student is named Park Yuncheon. Yuncheon obliges and exchanges greeting with Ijin. Yuncheon warns Ijin about the person who tried to trip him, who is named Lee Jaehyun. He says to be careful around him and his friend, Ju Hyukjin, who is now chatting with Lee. Ijin thanks him for all the information. That's when the math teacher walks into class and begins the lesson. Ijin notices the people around him, some sleeping, some laughing at something on the phone, and some are outside in gym clothes. He thinks about his mercenary days, and we see a glimpse of the hellish training he went through, noting that this country is peaceful while looking into the sky. School ends, and we see Dayun walking to the school gates. She spots Ijin, who is waiting for her. She is quite surprised by this. Ijin asks if she wants to go home together, and she obliges. While walking back, a silence falls on them. Ijin saying that this must be quite awkward. Dayun saying that it's not really that awkward, only just a little. Ijin says that there's no need to be so flustered, and that he feels the same. He was only 9 during the incident, meaning that he barely has memories of her or their grandfather, saying that it must be worse for her since she was only 7. This means that Ijin is 19, and Dayun is 17. They walk silently for a while, but one of girls who was bullying her spots Dayun, who gets nervous, thinking about what she should do. The girl taunts Dayun, asking who the boy next to her is, mocking her by saying it must be her boyfriend, and that even she can date. Dayun jumps at the notion, saying that it's her brother, the girl surprised by this notion. Ijin asks if she's a friend, and Dayun sheepishly says that she is. The girl gets annoyed by this, and asks Dayun if she is her friend. Dayun is visibly shaking, and the girl asks again. Ijin stares at the group, one of them being angry at his staring, getting up from his seat. The other one asking if he's out of his mind. Ijin thinks that they are picking a fight, one of them slowly approaching them, proclaiming that you meet all kinds out here. He stands face to face with Ijin and says that he's only trying to act cool in front of his sister. Ijin notes all his mistakes, thinking that he's closing in the distance like it's nothing, with his weak spots exposed and without a weapon to boot. He is puzzled at his confidence, and he remembers the words of Kong, deciding to leave this guy alone. The guy fed up with Ijin ignoring him, he grabs him by the shirt and prepares to slap him. That's when Dayun bows her head in apologies, saying that he lived abroad for a long time, and he is not used to the culture. The guy rebukes this, asking what does that have to do with him. Ijin looks at his sister, who is looking horrified at what is transpiring. Ijin suddenly jabs the guy's hand and drops his backpack on the ground. He goes to Dayun and tells her to stand still for a bit, gently putting his blazer on her head. The guy tries to come from behind with an attack, but he swiftly gets knocked out with one punch. The other two surprised at this performance. Ijin is annoyed that he had to break the promise he made to the lieutenant in the first day. The other guy is now visibly sweating and is very confused at what just occurred. It cuts to a military zone where some people are training. We see Kong looking at them. That's when a soldier comes behind him, saying that today is the day that Ijin goes to school. It seems that they have educated him for half a year, and they hope that he adjusts well. Kang confidently says that he will be fine. He trained Ijin after all. It cuts to the conflict MC is in, right when he knocks the first guy out. The guy is knocked out cold, just from one hit. Ijin swiftly dashes to the other person and punches him right in the gut, throwing him over the small balcony and knocking him out instantly as well. The girl is shocked at the outcome of the fight, and Ijin looks at her with killing intent. Dayun takes the blazer that was on her head off, and wonders what happened to the guys that were picking a fight, seeing them knocked out cold. Ijin walks past the girl, right to Dayun, and asks her if she was surprised, offering to buy some food for her. Dayun reassuring him that it's okay. Ijun says that they should go home, and we get a glimpse of just how well-built he is, with his muscles showing even through his clothes. The girl looks at him for a second, asking if it's really the same person that knocked two people out in an instant, because he's treating Dayun so gently. They leave, and the girl is left dumbfounded. While walking back, Dayun asks if he knocked out the guys that were threatening them, and he says yes. Dayun says that it's rude to stare at people, and they might get angry. Ijin says that he knows, but he did all of that because it looked like they were causing her trouble. She flares up at this notion, and blushes heavily, Ijin wondering if it's because it's something he said. At home, his grandpa is pleading with him to not do the dishes, and instead sit and to eat some fruit. Ijin refuses, saying that he should sit down while he does the dishes. While doing the dishes, his grandpa says that he hopes the food was to his liking, and that he prepared the food to the best of his abilities. Ijin says that he always enjoys his cooking, and the food is always delicious, his grandpa clearly being happy about the compliment. He then asks about the first day of school, and says if there were any problems. Ijin looks back at Dayun, and says that there were none. They all wish each other good night, and head to bed. While sitting in his bed, Ijin thinks about the things that happened up to this point, at how his grandpa kindly welcomed him, showing the amount of food he made for him. While sleeping, Ijin dreams about the day of the crash, and we see a glimpse of what happened, his parents protecting him while the plane was falling to its doom. He jolts awake, relieved that it was just a dream. He goes out of his room and sees Dayun preparing him breakfast. Ijin notices that his grandfather is missing, Dayun noting that he left for work. Ijin slightly surprised at the notion. Dayun also hurries to the door, saying that she has to leave early. Ijin looks at the food on the table, which is quite a lot of leftovers from last night. It cuts to the girl who witnessed the fight previously, who is explaining to the girl that is bullying Dayun, her name being Heejin, that the guy who knocked all her friends out was Dayun's brother. We then see that after Ijin and Dayun left, Heejin happened to pass the group of bullies, demanding to know what happened to them. The girl asks herself if they would really be okay if they keep bullying Dayun, remembering what Ijin did and the glare he gave her afterwards. But she reassures herself, saying that Heejin's brother is the alpha among the third years. We cut to Dayun suddenly being slapped across the head, and we see that it was Heejin, who demands for Dayun to follow her. Dayun does so, and it cuts to outside of the school, where Dayun is now getting beaten up. Heejin saying that she warned her about acting out. Heejin says that her brother's life is going to be tiresome too, implying that her brother is going to Ijin right now, and that he probably met him already. Dayun screams in retaliation, but gets slapped. Heejin annoyed at her screaming. Dayun gets up and runs to Ijin's class, where we see that Heejin's brother and his goons are already inside it. She makes it before they could do anything, and screams for her brother. Ijin sees her all tattered, red across the face due to the slap, and her clothing all muddied, his eyes turning predatory. Heejin's brother scoffs at this, and asks Dayun if she's worried about him. Heejin coming out of the doorway and saying that even she would be worried if her brother got beat up.